Richard. You're a national hero now.
Thank you, sir. But I was just doing my job.
Move away from the tower!
You always look at the guy who found the bomb, just like you always look at the guy who found the body.
Jewell fits the profile of the lone bomber, a frustrated white man who is a police wannabe who seeks to become a hero.
We're running it. You're a suspect. You don't talk. I talk. Say it.
I don't talk.
Good evening, all, and welcome back to the Moviescramble podcast. I am your host, Thomas, and with me, as ever these days, is the lovely John. John, how the devil are you?
The usual, trying to watch as many movies as I possibly can and failing miserably, but I still try anyway. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Exactly. I was the same as you. I was sitting last weekend and I mapped to like 6 films I wanted to go and see over the weekend. I saw one and I didn't even see it at the cinema. I watched it in a screener that you were able to provide for me.
Yeah, it's one of these things at the moment. I'm the same as you. I haven't been to the cinema for about 3-4 weeks now. It's terrible. I really do miss it. It's always good fun.
Yeah, do you not get that issue that not working in town anymore? That you don't get to go, you don't go as much compared to where we work now?
There's a more limited choice at our local World of Cine, but we do get to go and see some things. I had a look today at what was on, and basically nothing stood out for me that I hadn't seen. It was just particularly poor. Swings and roundabouts, it'll get better in a couple of weeks' time, no doubt.
Yeah, I do have Birds of Prey booked for tomorrow.
Nice.
And I don't care if it's... you know me, I love my DC films, so I'm really looking forward to it.
It should be good. Missed the opportunity to see it on Monday, unfortunately. I was supposed to see a press screening, but circumstances prevented. Yeah, I'll try and get to see it the weekend. Yeah. I'm sure we'll probably discuss it in full at a later date.
Indeed. Well, as we've just been discussing, we've been quite rubbish when it comes to seeing films recently. Both of us, however, have seen Clint Eastwood's new film, Richard Jewell. Now, this is an American biographical drama depicting the July 27th Centennial Olympic Park bombing and the aftermath, basically, where a security guard, Richard Jewell, found the bomb and was a hero for about 5 minutes before he became the main suspect in the FBI's investigation. I don't want to spoil this film too much for you if you haven't seen it. I wasn't that familiar with the story. I wasn't sure if he was involved. It was mistaken identity. It was a witch hunt. And that's what really kind of kept me gripped watching the movie. Before I discuss my thoughts on it, John, did you know much about the story itself? Or
same as yourself, obviously being at this side of the pond, we got very limited information about it at the time. There was a bombing and there was an investigation. We weren't really privy to a lot of the information that was coming out into the sort of local American media. So no, like with yourself, I was unaware of how it was actually going to unfold, which added to the film, I suppose.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think the tagline as well is you will know his name and the truth. And kind of watching the film, I said, not knowing where it was going, I was really gripped and I was really kind of hooked in. The performances were excellent. Paul Walter Hauser plays Richard Jewell. You got Sam Rockwell, his attorney. Kathy Bates plays his mum. John Hamm's the FBI agent. Olivia Wilde, the journalist. It's just great ensemble cast, but really underrated actors. And like I said, I was gripped. I was hooked. Up until maybe the last 40 minutes when I kind of felt the film ran out of steam. I think Clint Eastwood can be quite hit and miss with his movies, especially in later years. I don't think this was either. I think a really good cast kept us going. And like I said, it's a very interesting story. I didn't know much about it. Where I kind of seen where it was going, I just kind of felt it ran out of steam. What was your thoughts on the movie overall?
Pretty much the same as yourself in terms of the way that the story progressed. I was surprised the way that it started, in that you were expected to feel for Richard right from the very start. He was made out to be a good guy at the very start of this film. There was no question about that. But as you say, when the investigation started, there was lots of major doubts raised. But in the beginning, the sympathies very much were with his character. I agree with you in terms of the acting as well. I thought it was a pretty fantastic ensemble cast. Kathy Bates was just amazing as the mother of Richard. It's difficult to fault, and I think her nomination at the Oscars is very well deserved as well. The story itself was told in a very straightforward way. A lot of Clint Eastwood's work is like that. He tends not to embellish a lot of his stories with flourishes and split time narratives and all this sort of stuff. He tells a story. he has it and he tells that. We saw that very much in his previous film, The Mule, as well. That was a straightforward story. Pretty much about the same sort of type of people as well, sort of ordinary working people who get caught up in certain circumstances. I thought some of the antagonists in the film, especially the FBI, were a little bit hit and miss. I very like John Hamm, but it didn't come as a surprise when I found that his character wasn't an actual person. It was a composite of a number of FBI agents who were involved in the investigation, and because of that I felt it did seem one-dimensional in places. I mean, if he had a moustache he would have been twirling it at some points.
Yeah, totally agree. It was almost like a Timothy Dalton-esque role,
yes,
at times, and that's not a criticism to Timothy Dalton. It's just more that kind of, it reminds me of kind of the bad guy from Hot Fuzz. And you mentioned the fact that John Hamm's character, credited as FBI agent Tom Short, wasn't actually a person but an amalgamation of the FBI workers in the case. Interestingly enough, Olivia Wilde's character, Kathy Scruggs, was a real-life journalist, and there's been much controversy and criticism over her portrayal as somebody that was willing to sleep with Tom Shaw, the FBI agent, for information.
Yeah, I read about that.
And Olivia Wilde did have a good point when she went and said, then she defended the writing by saying, well, why is John Hamm not getting any blowback on this? Why is it just me? The counter to that was, well, his character wasn't real. For a movie based on character assassination to then have such a derogatory view of somebody's character, the real life Kathy Scruggs no longer with us, not that to defend herself, it seemed quite a poor choice to me to portray her in such a way that a lot of her friends and colleagues felt was very unfair, especially considering she passed away.
In a way, she was the cipher for the entire media. It was the element of the story that continued. You can see that from the poster, and you can see it all the way through the film and in the trailer and everything. The media plays a big part in this, and it's not a part that is seen to be a good part. So she's kind of that representative. She's the only real sort of media person that they really focus on. So I felt that that's why her character was put across like that. The seedier elements of investigative journalism and the sensationalising of stories as well, whether that's actually true or not, has been disputed, obviously. I did think that there was certain parallels between the Scruggs persona and the Richard Jewell persona as well. He liked the attention that he was getting from the cops and all of the authorities because he felt as if he was one of them, and she obviously really liked the attention that she was getting from her fellow colleagues when the story broke, and it was her story. She got a standing ovation when she went into the office after the news story broke, and you could see that she was sort of soaking in that adulation, and it was something that she quite enjoyed getting as well, because there was certain elements of her character that was almost like a dirt raker, journalist, lowest common denominator, hiding in cars to get interviews with people and all this, and as you say, sort of using sex as well as a way to progress her stories and progress her career by default from that. So it's a wee bit more deeper than some of these news stories about the way that her character was put on screen has been put there, I think. So I think there's more to it than just what we've been told after the fact.
I know what you mean. I think for me it was the kind of fact that they kind of they had him out of a compensate character for the FBI, but a real life person for the journalist. And as you mentioned there, a lot of the focus on this movie is a criticism in the media, and a lot of that criticism, to be fair, is justified.
Yes.
To put it all on one person does seem a bit unfair, especially when that person can't defend himself. And it was like the media is a kind of obvious bad guy in this, and that's fair enough. At the beginning of the film, you've got there isn't really kind of any reason to implicate him at the beginning of the movie. It's just a kind of, well, he's a bit weird.
Yeah.
He's a loner. He lives with his mum type idea, and it's a good kind of allegory as well for how it is dangerous just to kind of label people. It's just an interesting thing. You kind of see a lot of these films, and I don't want to get too much in it, kind of like race or gender or that, but you see a lot of these kind of things. The profiling of people is usually like people of colour, and
yes,
it's the negative stereotyping of them. In this case, it's a straight white guy.
Yes, but he's weird enough. That he stands out from the norm. Yes,
he's the lone wolf type archetype, so to speak. And as you mentioned, he's got a respect for authority because he wants to be a cop, but he's not good enough to be a cop. He's the stereotypical security guard abuses his power.
Yes.
And he's almost kind of cartoonish in a way. And it goes back to what you were saying about the idea that the plot and the story is very simplified. It's just how Clint Eastwood tells films. I don't think there's a lot of depth to the script or the movie as a whole. You've mentioned quite a lot of things there that, to be fair, are very valid themes. I'm not really too sure if they were
brought out in the way they should be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do think the characters themselves, especially the lead, they managed to kind of evoke so much depth in the characters. Especially we see like Richard talking to Sam Rockwell's character Watson, and he's starting to get really annoyed by how he's been treated. It's the first time he shows any actual emotion.
Yeah, even then he's still very reserved because the lawyer is saying to him, how can you just sit there? Why are you not annoyed? And he says, I am annoyed. He comes across as being very sort of insular. You know, he's one of these people who probably thinks showing any sort of emotion is a weakness, especially if you're in law enforcement. You should have a front at all times. You don't really bare your soul at all because that doesn't help any situation when you're supposed to be the authority figure.
Exactly. Speaking of performances as well, it's another excellent performance for Sam Rockwell for me. And I don't think that guy can do any wrong when it comes to his acting roles. Once again, he's absolutely fantastic in this. Very more kind of subdued, especially compared to Jojo Rabbit, which we spoke about last time. He's kind of like over the top, and he's excellent in this.
He's in a real purple patch in his career, isn't he? It seems to be one role after another, and he's just really going for it every single time. You can't fault him at all. Just absolutely amazing. So it's good to see him getting recognition for these roles as well. It's always nice. So what did you think about the way that they brought the Richard Jewell character to life? Do you think it was an oversimplification, or do you think that was appropriate for the story they were trying to tell?
I felt it was very appropriate for the story they were telling, where it was appropriate for the real life story. I don't know enough about it. Maybe such an oversimplification of a real life guy who, for all intents and purposes, and no disrespect intended, was quite a simple man. That's the impression he kind of gave anyway in the portrayal of him. But they're doing that. Stupid. No, definitely not stupid. Not simple in that kind of sense, but simple in just his interests and his lifestyle.
Yes.
And it really helped in making you sympathetic towards him. As you say, the film starts with let's show sympathy for this guy. He's clearly a decent guy who's not getting a break. But that does soon shift to show you there's a bit of job's worth, and he's a bit of a dick actually. I mean, come on mate, you've got a bit of power. Chill, you're not a real cop. Stop acting like you're Dirty Harry.
Yes.
For a topical reference, it's just chill out a bit. And there's a kind of movie goes on. I think it done really well at the beginning of the film, for me specifically. It putting doubt in, like, has he been involved in this? On one hand, you're like, is he the kind of criminal mastermind who could orchestrate something like this? That seems doubtful. But at the same time, his personality suggests he could actually bear this for attention, because as you mentioned, he's loving it so much, he's reveling in it. He's getting a real kind of buzz from being the hero. So I do think it's, as much as it shows you in a sympathetic light, it did for me paint enough doubt in his character that I did watch it thinking, maybe he's involved.
Yeah, for outside audiences like ourselves, there was that level of doubt, which is a good thing because obviously it draws you into the film a wee bit more as well. It's interesting to see that the film has actually been regarded as a bit of a flop. Didn't really make its money back in the US despite the subject matter and despite the fact it's Clint Eastwood that's actually involved in it, which I tend to find quite surprising because his films, which occasionally do real sort of gangbusters, the rest of them seem to have that middling ground where they make enough money for him to continue and do what he's doing, you know. And it was all his production company, everything. It was all Malpaso, as all of his own films are. So I found it reasonably surprising because it's the kind of film that would tend to be attractive for adult audiences that weren't looking for anything with a cape or explosions or cars jumping off of cliffs.
Kim, it's a strange one, as you say. I mean, like I say, the film didn't exactly blow me away. I thought it was enjoyable. For the most part, it was quite gripping, but like I said, it just kind of ran out of steam for me towards the end. But it has bombed for fairly badly. I don't think it's made its money back.
Nope, not yet.
Just kind of look, I mean, it will break even eventually if it comes to DVD sales and stuff like that, you imagine. But Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill produced the film.
All right. No, I didn't know that, no.
I noticed their names at the end, and apparently DiCaprio was originally supposed to play the part that went to Sam Rockwell in the end.
I thought you were going to say Richard Jewell.
Well, you can actually imagine Jonah Hill is Richard Jewell and
Yes.
DiCaprio was the lawyer.
Yeah, I
And
suppose so, yeah.
no disrespect to the cast that were in it because they were absolutely brilliant. That would have been a lot bigger.
That would have been right up there at the Oscar chat if it was, but wasn't to be. And I think Mr. DiCaprio was probably quite pleased that he dodged that based on what's actually come out after, the actual product itself. It's just one of these films that had a decent kernel of an idea, but as you say, just didn't quite get it in the end, which is a bit of a shame. It really is.
Aye, and maybe it was kind of too simplified. I know you're saying Clint Eastwood's style is that's fine. I like that kind of style of storytelling. Here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end, here's the story, here's the plot. I'm not going to go crazy with twists and turns and that. They're just like, it's a very straightforward story. But for the kind of story it was told very much from one angle. And it could have done maybe a bit more kind of depth and explanation to the themes that were clearly there, but didn't really come across for me.
It's interesting that film was written by Billy Ray, a veteran screenwriter, and he's not had a particularly good 2019 in that he wrote Gemini Man, Terminator Dark Fate, and Richard Jewell. None of which set the box office alight, but he's obviously got a number of very good credits to his name. He did Volcano, so that's obviously...
Yeah, Volcano is what I was going to mention.
Yeah.
It's a cracking film.
Oh, he did Captain
Volcano.
Phillips as well. He's...
No, that's a bit more
Yeah,
like highbrow.
All right.
The offence to Volcano, Tommy Lee Jones, but I don't think Billy Ray's going to put Volcano on his tombstone.
Yeah, and somehow I don't think he'll have Richard Jewell on it either. So,
But hey, Captain Phillips is good.
So, would you recommend it?
I would prefer, I would recommend it, but I wouldn't be rushing to the cinema to go and see it. I'd wait for it to go on Netflix or Sky Movies or something, and it's a decent film. I did feel it dragged at times. It did feel long.
Over 2 hours.
Kind of like it comes on streaming service, you get alone it in DVD or whatever. It's worth watching for performances alone. And if you don't know the story, I would definitely recommend it in that sense. But if you do know the story, I don't think you're going to get the same enjoyment out of it, personally.
I'd agree with you. Yeah, it's one of these ones that's quite perfect for watching at home, but I wouldn't rush out to see it. And if you've got anything else ahead of it in your queue, then it may be a while before you get to it. But yeah, it's one of these ones. If it comes on the telly or whatever, yeah, give it a watch.
You want to know more detail about the film, you can check out the review on moviescramble.co.uk, where it's a transcript of what we said.
I bet it's an excellent review, though. I can't remember who wrote it.
Some joker. Well, as you know, we like to do in this podcast, if you've been listening to previous episodes, we like to have a little top 3 based on a theme of the movie or something surrounding it. So we've went with our top 3 movies by actors turned director. Now, the first when I thought about this, I kind of felt like obvious names. I won't mention them just now in case we've picked them, but the kind of obvious ones come to mind, and the obvious ones will probably come to your mind as well. But when I googled actor turned director, I forgot about all these cracking films that I'm a massive fan of, and most of these films as well topped my top 10 list of that year. And there was other actors that had made films I hadn't realised were either actors to begin with or wasn't familiar with their work, but were big fans of the films. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know personally on my list, I've went with actors who I was fans of and was fans of the films as well, as opposed to just, well, I really like this film and I have no idea what their acting career's like. And I'll touch on them. I'll touch on a couple of them because I do think they deserve a special mention. But John, you're first up. How did you get on with your top 3?
It was fairly easy.
I do not believe there's an overlap this time.
No overlap at all, I believe. It was fairly easy because as soon as we had broached the idea, 2 of them sprung to mind right away based on the fact that it was the actor and the director aspect of it that I really liked. Also, the movies that they were involved in were pretty good. Again, not mainstream ones, but it's still films that really people should be checking out. My first choice is Emilio Estevez. And the film I have chosen is a film called The Way. Now, Emilio Estevez, obviously part of the the Brat Pack back in the 80s. He's had quite an interesting career in terms of his filmography. He doesn't seem to do the same thing twice. If you look at his filmography to date, he's obviously been in The Young Guns, Loaded Weapon 1, The Mighty Ducks, Badlands, which was his very first film performance, is just a wee extra role in there. And obviously he was in the very first Mission Impossible film, so he's had a varied career in front of the camera and behind it. Equally as interesting, he tends to do films that he really wants to do. He's not really one of these director for hires. Did film Bobby, about the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, and this film, The Way, is the follow-up to that. It's the story of Dr. Thomas Avery, who's played by Emilio Estevez's father, Martin Sheen, who goes to France following the death of his son Daniel. Now, Daniel had set out on the Camino de Santiago, which is the Way of St. James. It's a pilgrimage route which runs through the Pyrenees to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia in Spain. Unfortunately, on the first day of the trip, Daniel has an accident, loses his life. So his father has to go over, identify the body, and get him cremated. Now, instead of taking him home, he decides to honour him by actually carrying out the Way of St. James. So he sets off, and the story is about him coming to terms with his relationship with his son and coming to terms with the fact that he's an older man, that he doesn't really have any sort of purpose, and what he is wanting to get out from the rest of his life. I mean, along the way, he meets various groups of characters, and in the film, it's actually, some of them are actually real pilgrims on the way, and some of them are actors, notably James Nesbitt and Deborah Carr-Unger, and they form a relationship and spend some of the time together on the road. It's a fantastic movie. It really, really concentrates on the Thomas Avery character all of the way and how he is feeling and what he's trying to do. And the guy's not perfect. The guy's a bit of a mess at times, basically because he's grieving for the whole time that he's actually doing this. Apparently, Emilio and Martin Sheen had real arguments during this film because they're so close and because of the way that they wanted to actually develop the role and develop the film. And Emilio Estevez said at the time that it was a particularly difficult film to work on because of his arguments with his dad, but it really, really worked out well for him. He was very pleased with the results. Now, the film is very small, didn't make a lot of money. It's one of these films, I think it may be on Netflix at the moment. It's well worth seeking out because it's a terrific little movie.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen it, but it sounds good. If it's a film, I'm thinking it is. I remember it was the early days of Twitter, and Emilio Estevez was heavily promoting it, and he was just following everybody back. It was great. So he was like, oh, Emilio Estevez following me on Twitter. He follows at 500,000 people, and I'm one of them. I love Young Guns. I even love Young Guns too.
They had no budget.
No,
I
haven't seen that at all. No, it does sound very, very intriguing.
So, your first choice?
I have went with the 2012 film Argo. Directed by Ben Affleck, it is based on the true story of the Iran hostage crisis, where they've got 6 US diplomats that are stuck in the country, can't get out. So Ben Affleck plays Tony Mendez, a CIA operative that goes to Tehran under the pretense of making a movie called Argo, a science fiction film, so he can help rescue them and get them out of the country. And I think this was Ben Affleck's second directorial movie after Gone Baby Gone. It's brilliant. I just absolutely love this film. It's gripping. What's point of reading this was a time when Affleck's acting was kind of like persona non grata by critics. It's a very good performance. His directing really kind of shows you where his talent lies. It's got a great supporting cast, and Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin and John Goodman. The film just flies by. It's based on a true story. It is heavily dramatised, but if you haven't seen it, please do. I think it was actually my film of the year in 2012. It was nominated for 7 Oscars and won 3, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Film Editing. I can't say enough good things about this film, and I don't want to say too much in case you haven't seen it, because please do. It's just a brilliant thriller.
Yeah, totally agree. I've just pulled up your review on the Moviescramble website from the 7th of November 2012, where you praise it to the heavens. It was a very good film. It was one of these films that highlighted the fact that Ben Affleck was an excellent director. Even though it won the Oscar for the film, he didn't get nominated as Best Director that year. There was a bit of a small controversy about it at the time. As you say, yeah, it's a great film. It's highly dramatised, but it's a fantastic watch because it just piles along and you just really want to know what's going on and how the film actually is going to progress and everything as well. And the whole idea about how they actually went about their mission is just great. And obviously there's the whole "Argo fuck yourself" line that John Goodman says all the time, which is very funny. And I could watch Alan Arkin in just about anything. He's one of my favourites. Yeah. So dry with his humour, just fantastic.
Him and John Goodman have a kind of like a double act in the movie almost, this kind of comedy duo, and they're just brilliant. And you mentioned the film's heavily dramatised, and it is. There's some massive inaccuracies, especially, I'm not going to mention the finale in the third act, but there's a scene where you're just totally gripped to the chair and you're like, are they going to make it, they're going to make it? And the whole thing's totally fictionalised, but who cares?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It works.
Absolutely.
It's not a documentary.
Yeah. No, far from it. Definitely is. Okay, my second choice is the actor Ed Harris for the film Pollock, which was a passion project of his. It was something he was working on for over a decade, I believe, from the time when he got a biography of the abstract painter Jackson Pollock. Now, Ed Harris, obviously, what more can you say about the man? He's been in so many good films, like So The Right Stuff, The Abyss, The Rock, Beautiful Mind, Snowpiercer quite recently, and obviously he was in Mother a couple of years ago, which is one of my favourites. And most recently, he's been seen in the HBO TV drama Westworld, where he was the man in black, which is a fantastic performance. He uses his craggy old looks to best effect. Pollock tells the biographical story of Jackson Pollock, as I said. He was a struggling abstract expressionist painter who got inspiration and guidance when he met an artist called Lee Krasner, who decided that she could help him, and they ended up marrying, and she basically helped him guide more outrageous tendencies. He was a raging alcoholic. He didn't particularly like people, but she saw something in him, a talent in him that was worth developing and showing to the world. Now, his paintings themselves are just absolutely amazing pieces of work. I've seen a couple of them when I was in New York a couple of years ago, and they are such interesting works of art. The way that's the drip method that he uses, where he's actually just dripping paint and lines and splodges and everything. And when you see it up close, it's amazing to see. So anyway, Harris stars as Pollock in the film, as well as directing it. And he showed a real sense of what the painter was like and what it was like to actually be an artist and create art. He spent quite a lot of time in the film actually showing arts being made. And Harris actually did all the artwork during the making of the film as well, and it's all pretty authentic when you actually see it. He also got some really good performances out of it. The performance of Marcia Gay Harden as Lee Krasner was Oscar nominated, I believe. So because he's an actor, he was able to bring out the best in terms of the cast as well. And he was obviously critically lauded for his work on it as well. And it sounds a wee bit obscure, but it's a film that you can quite easily sit down and you get totally engrossed in, just because of the way that the main character is brought to screen and the way that he actually produces his art as well. I was totally blown away by it at the time. It's one of these films that's just stayed with me. And as I say, when we decided to talk about this subject, it sprung to mind right away, right after Old Emilio. So have you seen it?
I haven't even heard of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
No, I've got very interested. To be fair, I do like Ed Harris, but it was something if I seen like I was flicking through Netflix or that and it popped up about like Jackson Pollock. Yeah. But
yes,
that does sound like something I would watch, to be fair. Your description of it.
I've actually just had a wee look, and Marcia Gay Harden won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, cool.
And Ed Harris was nominated, so it was reasonably high profile in award season, which obviously tends to deal with more prestige films rather than bigger, well-known films. You know what it's like. It likes to promote smaller movies, which is always good, let's face it. So, your second choice?
Well, on the topic of artists, this is also a movie based on a real-life artist. I'm, of course, talking about Tommy Wiseau, and this is James Franco's The Disaster Artist, a movie about the worst film ever made. The Disaster Artist tells the story of Tommy Wiseau, sort of Greg Sestero, their unlikely friendship, their interesting career, and the movie The Room. Like the last film, the lead stars and director, James Franco plays Tommy Wiseau, and Dave Franco plays Greg Sestero. Now, I like James Franco as an actor. He's in a lot of rubbish. He's in a lot of good stuff. He's just in a lot. He's kind of one of the guys. He's in everything at times. He can do really good serious roles. He can play comedic roles. I find him kind of very versatile. And I know there's some kind of controversies regarding his real life persona. On screen, he always comes across likeable, but not so much in this as well, because he's playing Tommy Wiseau, and it's just somebody you want to punch the entire time. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the real life James Franco is like that. It's kind of a help seep through, but it's a great performance, and it's brilliantly directed. He manages to nail what I imagine the making of that film to be like. And after I went and read Greg Sestero's book that the film's based on, and he seems to get the tone very well. Dave Franco is good as James is Tommy Wiseau, and he's a lot more kind of attention grabbing over the top. Dave Franco's subdued, almost straight man performance it's very underrated in my opinion. The film itself is laugh out loud hilarious, genuinely quite touching, really cringy, and considering the subject matter, I mean, if you've not seen The Room, please look at it. It's not even a kind of case, oh, it's so bad, it's good. It's just terrible. There is really funny bits in it, don't get me wrong. I got a better appreciation for The Room after watching this. I watched The Room first, almost turned it off like 5 times, going, wow, why am I still watching this? People keep telling me, oh, it's really funny, it's really not. After Disaster Artist, I thought this is really good. Went back to The Room, but no, it's really not good. But Disaster Artist managed to capture the most ridiculous parts of it, viewed out of context, which Disaster Artist does in the movie. It really kind of captures how absurd it is, but the actual making of the film is insane, absolutely insane. The fact that this guy's got this wealth, buys all the equipment, just walks out of the shop and goes, oh, I'm going to buy all these cameras, and they're like, people usually rent them. No, I'll just buy them, it's easier. Yes, it's a film that when I went to see it, I thought James Franco's really kind of showing his worth as a director here, and he's going to be up for a lot of awards for this film, both in front of the camera, behind the camera. When it came to the Oscars, it didn't really bother them too much. It got a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, I believe, but it did pick up a lot of awards elsewhere. And one of Phil's most notable was at the Golden Globes. It won Best Actor, and Tommy Wiseau was on the stage and tried to speak in the mic.
That's right, yes.
It's a crack. If you're a fan of The Room, please check it out. If you've not even heard of The Room, it's still worth watching, because I think again it was my film of the year for 2017.
Can't really go wrong with James Franco, as you say. He has a bit of a strange persona off screen, but it's faultless. And I thought it was a pretty difficult role to take on, given the fact that obviously Tommy Wiseau was very much, or at the time he was very much in the public eye. So a lot of people knew what he was like and how he was coming across. So in order to do that without being a total caricature of the man, I thought it was an excellent performance from him. It worked really, really well.
What is that to me? His portrayal of the character and his presentation of the character as a director, as you say, could have easily been turned into a caricature. And in many ways, it is, but only because the real life Tommy Wiseau does portray himself as a caricature. He nailed it in terms of presenting that character, and how it didn't kind of pull any punches, I think, in the presentation of the movie, and showing Tommy Wiseau as a bit of a dick.
Yes.
And Greg Sestero's clearly a sympathetic character in that, and yeah, it was. I honestly I won't say too much more about it in terms of the plot or that, but please go and see it. It's also starring Seth Rogen and Alison Brie. I said, very, very funny movie, but touching bit buddy. but the kind of drama as well, and just excellently directed, cracking film, love it. And John, it's over to you for your third and final choice.
My third and final choice is John Krasinski for A Quiet Place. Now,
I can't actually believe that's not on my list, but on you go.
It's one of these strange things. He's been making films for a number of years, quite small scale films. He's obviously best known for his roles in front of the camera in The Office, Jarhead, and he was in the bits and pieces like in The Muppets and some other loads and loads of wee bits and films. He was in Manchester by the Sea as an executive producer. When he brought this to the screen, it's a film that is just out there in terms of the initial idea behind it. You can't make a sound. And I'm not really giving anything away here. The film is, you can't make a sound at all because there are monsters out there and they can hear you. Now, it sounds a very sort of standard horror trope, but the way it was done, basically they walk without shoes on, everything is done very slowly and deliberately. It's basically the story of it's this family who have, I think it's about 2 or 3 months after these aliens or whatever they are. It's never really described at the start of the film, although I think it may get picked up a little bit more with its follow-up, which is out in a couple of weeks' time. Basically, it's the story of a family that's trying to survive. They've got young children and everything. There's a very, very tense opening scene where you go, oh my goodness. And from there, you're on edge for the whole film. One of the reasons you're on edge for the whole film is because, as with the characters on screen, you can't make a sound either. Now, I saw this in a cinema screen, and all the usual antics that you tend to get with people on cinema screens just weren't washing at all because nobody could make any noise. You couldn't eat popcorn. You couldn't be whispering to your pals. You couldn't be doing anything at all because there was literally long periods in this film where there was complete silence. And it just made everybody actually be acutely aware of their own surroundings and in turn acutely aware of what was actually going on the screen, and it kind of drew you into the film even more. Fantastic performances, Mr. Krasinski himself. It's one of these films that I don't think it really got the full recognition it deserved for the likes of Emily Blunt's performance, because that was just an amazing piece of acting. She's fantastic in this film, the way that she conveys fear for most of it and concern for her children and basically helplessness at some points as well. It's an amazing piece of work, and obviously love it, and I'm so much looking forward to the new film, which is out on the 20th of March.
I don't disagree with any of that. I look forward to this film, just seeing the trailer, and I'll go and see any horror film, as you know. I thought I liked the casting and stuff. I didn't know much about John Krasinski at the time. I hadn't really seen The Office or anything like that at that point. Big fan of Emily Blunt, one of my favourite actors. She's absolutely excellent in everything she does, and she's so versatile.
Yeah.
Whether it's Mary Poppins or Edge of Tomorrow or a more kind of like drama, she's brilliant. I'll go and see her literally in anything. Emily Blunt would have sold the show for me if it wasn't for Millicent Simmons, who portrays the deaf child of the couple who's deaf in real life, and just bringing that kind of authenticity to the role in a movie you can't make a sound.
Absolutely.
It's just, and I remember podcasts I listened to John Krasinski, like having Emily Blunt spoke about working on the movie and what they learned from Millicent, and just listening to how passionate he is about the film and the storytelling and how he made it and how he wanted to be respectful to the deaf community and how they learn sign and stuff like that. The amount of effort he put in, it wasn't just a gimmick, and I think it really shows in the movie, because it's not just a plot device, it's not just there for, like I say, a gimmick. It really does add this incredible depth to it, and it's genuinely terrifying. I went to see it at the cinema as well, and I think Mary went and seen it at the cinema, and she had a pretty bad screening. People did not make a sound when I was there. People were just hooked from start to finish. They were scared. They were scared to make a sound.
Yep.
And it's more than just a Tremors reboot. With a gritty kind of edge to it. It's no B-movie. It's really tense. It's scary. It was my film of the year, 2018. This isn't a podcast. My films of the year. The days gone by, but it seems that way.
Yeah, well.
Looking forward to the second one. Outstanding directorial debut, I believe, by John Krasinski.
Not sure. I think he's done a few things before, but it's been smaller things. I think he has actually directed before. I know he's directed some television and things like that as well.
His first feature movie, maybe?
Sorry?
His first feature? Was his first feature movie, maybe?
Possibly, yes. His Wikipedia entry is quite extensive.
Either way, he wasn't really that kind of seasoned, I would say.
No, not at all. No.
And yeah, like I said, it was my film of the year, easily, in 2018.
Not really surprised there. It's one that kind of ticks all the buttons, doesn't it? Well, if you can tick button, you check buttons, you don't
tick buttons. If it ticked your buttons, please let us know.
So, Thomas, your third and final choice?
Well, this film was not my film of the year in 2001, but only because Moviescramble didn't exist. I actually was going to pick one of the films that was on my reserve list was Don John by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I actually think was my film of the year in 2013, I believe. I went with Frailty, directed by Bill Paxton, and I went with this because I think it's so criminally underrated from a criminally underrated actor who is widely loved, very cult-like figure. Aliens, Terminator, Predator, True Lies, almost kind of like Sam Rockwell before Sam Rockwell in many ways. I would say Bill Paxton, but with Frailty, he directs a 2001 psychological horror film. It also co-stars Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth. It was Paxton's directorial debut, and the plot focused on the relationship between two young boys and their fanatically religious father, who believed he was being commanded by God to kill demons. The problem being, the demons looked at people. So as far as his sons are concerned, they're just a serial killer who's travelling the country murdering people. And the film does very well at merging is he insane? Is he really getting messages for God? By the end of the film, it kind of makes this very clear. But I just, when I first seen it, I was like, what's going on here? Because it just keeps you guessing the entire time. It's very, very dark. It's very grim. It's sort of gruesome tone to it. This really gothic horror gaze that Paxton kind of frames that it's very unsettling. I've got so much love for this film. There's actually so much. When I've seen the ending the first time, I wasn't a fan of how the ending was because it wasn't how I expected it to go. Mm-hmm. Watching it in the rewatch, I thought, you know what, actually, no, that's very clever. I was a big fan of it. Matthew McConaughey, I mean, this is 2001 before his renaissance, so to speak, but he's also very good in this. He plays the son, but older, telling the story of his childhood. And if you haven't seen this, I cannot recommend it enough. It's one of those little gems of a movies that just kind of passed a lot of people by, I believe.
Well, I'm one of those people. I've never seen it, and before you mentioned it, I think I'd heard of it, but never really thought about it. But having listened to what you said, I think I'm going to seek it out and try and watch it as soon as I can. It sounds excellent. It sounds like a really good horror film.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like it's very kind of simple in its themes and its telling of the story, but the complexity lies in the kind of guessing part of it. Mm-hmm. And Paxton's performance is outstanding. This is kind of one of his rare leading roles.
Yes.
And he kind of captures the psyche of the main character very well, and you kind of thinking, like, is he insane? He must be insane, but you can believe him because he's so fanatical and so righteous. Yeah. And like I say, how he just kind of like frames the story and stuff, and how he kind of portrays this kind of like this gothic horror. It's very unsettling. I can't recommend it enough. I don't want to say too much about it because it'll kind of twists and turns, but yeah, please do it. And like I say, Matthew McConaughey is really good in this as well. It's a great performance. And yeah, just go see it. Don't go see it because you can't go and see it. It's not in the cinema. See it.
Seek it out.
Seek it out by any means necessary.
Very good choice. Very good. 3 choices, actually. Nice.
Give us some food for thought. I'm going to give another little shout out for Melanie Laurent, who watched one of my favourite films I've seen last year. It wasn't released last year, but Galveston.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
She almost made the list as well, but I just didn't know enough about her from an acting point of view. I didn't know enough about an actor to put her in my kind of list because I was picking actors that I was big fans of. But Galveston is a cracking film, and it's grim.
Honourable mentions for me were Jon Favreau at one point, obviously, because
yes,
he's done a fair body of work which needs no further expounding, and Kenneth Branagh as well. But I was toying with the idea of talking about Dead Again, but then I realised I hadn't seen it for years, which is a modern noir film he did when he went to Hollywood first time, him and Emma Thompson, which is it's a cracking movie, but I just didn't have enough time to sort of catch up with it again. I suppose I could have gone with Murder on the Orient Express or any of the Shakespeare adaptations, but yeah. But there's so many. Like you said, there is a list of very famous ones which we haven't really touched on at all.
Well, we did get only one reply on social media from Alan Douglas at @Douglas_1981. However, he has given us quite a lot. His choices were Ron Howard for Apollo 13, Cinderella Man, Beautiful Mind and Ransom, Clint Eastwood, Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Invictus, Jersey Boys, J. Edgar Hoover, and American Sniper. He's also went for Mel Gibson with Braveheart, Passion of the Christ, Apocalypto, Robert Redford for River Runs Through It, and Sylvester Stallone for Rocky. But Sylvester Stallone didn't direct Rocky, did he?
He did Rocky 2,
just
didn't
wrote it.
he? Wrote Rocky. I think he did Rocky 2.
He's not being precise, but let him off it because Rocky's good. But yeah, you're right. You're saying, John, like we kind of missed a lot of kind of heavy hitters there, but I think Alan has ticked those boxes off.
Yeah, obviously Clint Eastwood himself is a pretty famous one, if you like.
I stand by my list. I'm quite happy with it. And I think your list is cracking. It's the two of the films I haven't seen. I Tethered Away, hadn't had a Pollock, but I'll definitely check them out.
Not bad. Right, so that appears to be us at the tail end of another successful, well, we'll leave that to our audience to decide, but another podcast. All we have left to discuss really is just to note, obviously, on the day of recording, we found out that the actor Kirk Douglas died at the age of 103, which is an astounding age for anybody, never mind an actor who, let's face it, some of them have excesses that lead to not very long lives whatsoever. He had a pretty distinguished career in terms of films. I think he had 91 credits. Obviously the very famous ones like Spartacus and Paths of Glory, but he was in so many different things. He's one of these actors that I watched when I was younger because the stuff that he was in was always on the television. You've got the likes of Spartacus, but you've also got Lonely Are the Brave as well, which was a nice wee western that it was in. And one of these films, again, you just see all the time. He made his name in the mid-50s onwards. He was in Paths of Glory. He was in The Vikings, which is just an amazing film. There's a fantastic scene. I don't know if you seen The Vikings recently at all?
I haven't, no.
It's Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis as the Vikings. And that's pretty much all you need to know. And there's a great scene where they're attacking this castle and the castle raises a drawbridge and there's a moat in between. So what the Vikings do is they run up towards the edge of the moat and start throwing axes at the drawbridge, and then somebody dives across and gets up and they use the axe handles to actually climb up the drawbridge. It's just fantastic. It's one of these things you think, yep, that's the one for me. That's great. He really came to sort of prominence with Ace in the Hole, which was a film about a crooked reporter who was reporting on a man who was lost in tunnels underground, and he actually went down and found him and made sure that he stayed there a couple of days so he could get the scoop in the story. It's a pretty horrible sort of character, and it was one that marked him out as being a real star and a real hard-nosed actor, if you like, and he did that again and again in various roles as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You mentioned Spartacus. I only seen Spartacus for the first time a few years ago. It was the cinema was issued a special anniversary edition. Mm-hmm. Me and my mate went to see it against a classic film we think was going to be like, and both of us thought it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely loved it. And so I saw the news this morning about Kirk Douglas dying. My kind of first thought was, man, that's kind of one of the kind of last kind of pillars of the golden age of Hollywood.
Yes.
Kind of gone. That's not just the end of a man's life, but it's the end of an era. What I wasn't aware of, interestingly enough, and this just managed to pass me by until today, was the allegations against him regarding Natalie Wood. Now, unfortunately, Natalie Wood also met a tragic end involving some controversy with another actor in her death, and we're just not going to get any justice for her, I believe, or know the entire truth of what happened there. And I think it would, I don't kind of mention this kind of lightly, but like I said, up until like 5 minutes after knowing he died, I didn't even know about the kind of controversy surrounding his relationship with her. But I think it would be disingenuous of me to not mention her name when discussing his death.
Yeah, same. I didn't know anything about it until Mary highlighted it this morning. She pointed me in the direction on Twitter when she was sending us messages, and I thought, don't know anything about this, and started reading up on it, and it's all over. In fact, she is trending more than Kirk Douglas is, because apparently I think she died in the same day as him. She died years ago. It was her death. So it's strange how they wait till obviously these people die before. Well, it's not really strange, I suppose, because then there's litigation involved, as we've seen at the moment with all the Weinstein stuff. That tends to take centre stage, and it just seems to roll on. But this was a bit of a surprise Again, it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks just what comes out, if anything comes out. It would be a shame if it did, because it will tarnish the image of an actor who was particularly well loved for a number of years. Yeah, a bit of a shame. It really is.
That'll be interesting. I mean, like, kind of looking at Ken Natalie Wood's life, it's just a tragic tale from start to finish, really. It's a shame if these allegations are true, that she's had to go through something like that. It's absolutely horrific. And I don't dismiss those claims whatsoever. It's just something you're never going to know. And yeah, like I say, I mean, like, a great actor has died, but that's a massive dark cloud kind of hanging over that legacy, and it would be kind of remiss not to mention that in association with today. And as you say, she's actually trending more than him, and maybe there's some kind of justice in a way there. But yeah, we try not to get too deep in this podcast to talk about movies.
Yes, yeah.
You know, it's like we saw kind of like there's a Kirk Douglas. We thought we'd just be talking about Spartacus and some of these films, but yeah, a lot of learning curve and education for us too this morning as well. Thanks to Mary for that one.
So we're done.
Yep, that's us, and we hope you've enjoyed this. We hope we've not left you too much of a downer. Please go and check out the films recommended. If you do get a chance to see Richard Jewell, let us know what you think. Our top 3, couldn't talk about these films highly enough, so they're definitely top of the list for recommendations for this episode. You can contact us on the social medias as usual. With social medias, it's not even a thing. But Netflix, don't contact us on Netflix, we're not there yet. Contact us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Moviescramble. You can also email John. If you listen to the last episode, you know he has got an email. And I keep saying email John. It's email us, but
yes,
John
I'm the only one who looks at it. Yes, yeah. So it's podcast@moviescramble.co.uk for all your recommendations, and if there's anything in particular you'd like us to talk about, we're more than happy to take a look at it, unless it's really rubbish, and then we'll just pretend that we never actually received it. But
exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. And then we'll get drunk one night and record a podcast for the pub and slag you off. But yeah, I mean, we've got a very specific format of these podcasts and stuff. We're looking to do more, so we're looking to do some kind of ad hoc stuff. I think, John, you and Mary are going to do one for the GFT coming up.
Yes, obviously the Glasgow Film Festival starts at the end of the month, and we're going to try and do a wee preview podcast, just a wee quickie, just to introduce what's our highlights of the festival, and then I think we'll do a catch-up podcast at the end as well, just to see what we enjoyed, whether it was a good festival or not, and sort of compare notes, that kind of idea. Looking forward to it. Yeah,
it'll be good. You get some good coverage for that. I mean, I say use because I'm not going this year. I haven't went the last few years, but you do put a lot of good hours into that, and yeah, you enjoy it. But it's a lot of hard work, and it is. I'm sure the readers do appreciate it, because I mean, getting to go and see films and rep with it.
Yeah,
what a life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Bang, my shoes are too tight over there. But I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please check out recommendations. Let us know, and we will see you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.